I'm Joe Gigliotti, PhD, and I am your guide for this journey you are about to embark on. Now, to survive here in this generation, you're going to have to know a few things. Come along for the ride. I will show you how to live. Of How to Live is all about how to dine. Everybody loves to go out to eat, have a little snack, dinner, lunch, breakfast, what have you, even dessert. So we're going to teach you all about how to dine. And the first lesson is very important. Mind your manners.
How nice to see you.
I hope I'm not disturbing you.
Not at all. I'm reading letters as usual.
Are there any new questions?
A few. But you know, it's always so interesting as to why there are so many questions about table manners.
Well, that's easy to understand, because most people are at ease in their own homes, but often are confused at a dinner party.
That's true, and yet manners at the most formal dinner party are exactly the same as they are at home. This is a correctly set place at a dinner table. The silver, as you see, has been arranged according to courses. There should never be more silver than there are courses for which it's intended. For each course, you take the implement furthest from your plate. Croutons are sprinkled into the soup. Crackers are served as such things as clam chowder or oyster stew, in which event it is proper to crumble them, if not too many at a time. You will be provided with a large spoon if your first course is served in a plate. This is eaten with the right hand, and therefore the correct implement is furthest from your plate on the right. You fill the spoon by dipping it away from you, and then sip from the side. If you wish to take the last spoonful of soup, you may tip the plate like this. If soup is served in a cup, it may be eaten this way. Or to drink the soup, remove the spoon and lift the cup by both handles. Avoid making your little fingers conspicuous. Let them relax. Unlike the large spoon, which is to be left in the plate when you're finished, leave the small spoon in the saucer of the cup. In a house without a maid, the meat is served by the host and passed round the table. Do not begin eating until your food for that course is on your plate. While waiting, you perhaps eat a piece of bread. Break it like this and hold it against the rim of your plate to butter it, or on your bread and butter plate, which is always on your left. Help yourself by using a serving spoon in your right hand and assisting with the serving fork in your left. Then place the spoon and fork together at the side of the dish and pass it on. Remember to place each dish passed to you on the table to your left. This provides free use of your right hand. Cut small bite-sized pieces of each separately. Try not to talk or take a drink of anything while you have food in your mouth. Eat as quietly as possible. It is proper to push your fork against a small piece of bread to assist you in picking up last morsels of food. A small piece of bread may also be used to finish the gravy that is left on your plate. If you pass your plate for a second helping, place the implements to the right and well up on the plate so they will not slip off, and also to provide ample room for more food. Salad may be served either as a separate course, such as this, or it may be placed on the table before you sit down. In this case, your salad is that at your left. If a knife is provided, its blade must be of silver or stainless steel. It is absolutely correct to cut your salad with a knife. Properly, every dessert may be eaten with both fork and spoon. If you're served a whole peach, such as this, hold it with the fork in your left hand and cut the fruit around the pit with the spoon in your right. Dip the tips of your fingers into the finger bowl. It is correct to pat your lips with your moistened fingers and dry both fingers and lips with your napkin. Among the difficult foods to handle gracefully is spaghetti. It is usually served in long strands covered with sauce and sprinkled with grated cheese. You can manage it best by using the side of your plate as a barricade and twisting it into a bite-sized roll. Practice makes perfect in this operation. If a strand comes loose from your fork, put your fork back into your plate and twist it until all strands are again secured. It is true that asparagus is classified as a finger food, but it is much better table manners to cut the tips and the stalks as far as edible with your fork. It is always better not to risk eating asparagus with your fingers. By using your fork in this manner, you can be sure that at no time will you appear ungraceful. It is always correct to use your spoon and fork for eating any cream-filled dessert. Again, hold it with your fork and cut and eat with your spoon. Managed this way, you will easily control it. Make frequent use of your napkin if dessert is a sticky one, such as this. Fruits, such as stewed cherries, which you put into your mouth, pits and all, may be eaten with a spoon alone. It is correct, however, to use your fork as well. You drop the pits into your spoon and place them on your plate. However, things as small bones, chicken skins, or any unwanted morsel are properly removed from your mouth with your fingers. It's bad manners to light your own cigarette when none are provided at table. To blow smoke in your neighbor's face is inexcusable, and never do this. Imagine the chagrin of a hostess who prides herself on the brilliance of her silver when her guest does this. And adds insult to injury by being suspicious of the glassware. Blow your nose if you must, but do it inconspicuously and be sure your handkerchief is fresh. And don't apologize. You can't help coughing, but if it lasts any length of time, you should leave the table. Making up at table is not only unattractive, but unnecessary. Whenever you're being waited on, you will be served at your left. With the exception of having someone wait on you, everything is exactly the same. Even in a house of greater size and formality, you will not encounter any new rules nor changes in behavior. The beverage which you accept will be poured for you in its correct glass. Unless you have refused a course and left its implements untouched, the outside ones on either side of your fresh plate are the ones you take the plate. As you see, all table manners follow a set pattern. Once learned, you can never be...
Welcome back. Now that you've minded your manners, it's time for another very, very important lesson in how to live. This next lesson, more often than not, when you go out to eat, you'll be sitting at a table. And you want to have proper etiquette while you're sitting at that table. You don't want to have your feet on the table or your elbows on the table, chew with your mouth open, all those sorts of things. That is wrong, 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 and against etiquette. So this lesson is all about how to have etiquette at the table.
Game on table manners. Betty, our hostess, is having a few of her friends to her home for a birthday party. She has been to any number of little parties like this, but this is the first time she has given a party all by herself. Like everyone else, she thinks that her etiquette is perhaps not perfect, but good enough so that there are no glaring errors. She is proud of her table arrangement and thinks she deserves a word of congratulation. But the housekeeper must tell Betty she has noticed a few errors. A napkin is out of place. The butter knife belongs on the butter dish, not next to the meat knife. And a water glass. Small matters, but they are important when they show whether or not your habits of etiquette are correct. See if you notice right away when someone is incorrect or is definitely correct. Betty's confidence is shaken a bit, and she has doubts of her correctness. Should she have preceded her guests into the room? Is she directing them to their places properly? Should Betty have used place cards? The young man who is trying, too late, to assist Betty with her chair is Bob. It is his birthday that is being celebrated and his host. He seems to feel at ease and just act as she always does. Notice now what a way of opening his napkin and putting her in his belt. Could that be all right? Bernie and Helen seem quite certain of the way they open their napkins and place them in a half fold in their laps. They seem to be really at ease. But then everyone is more at ease now that the party is really started. The main thing is that they should enjoy each other's company. Betty and Bob aren't worrying about their mistakes for a moment, but in the back of their minds they realize they will have to pay more attention to their manners. They know that the object of correct etiquette is not to make life formal and dull, but to make it fully enjoyable. There are reasons for each act of etiquette, as in a man's assisting a lady with her chair, or the order with which people are. Bob is hungry, and the soup looks good. He is using his company manners, but as we see, he is doing at least 3 things wrong. Now that the soup is served, Betty sees that the crackers are passed. Floyd passes the crackers to Dorothea before he helps himself. Should he have helped himself first or not? Bob is eating before the others. What about that? Apparently the guests are waiting for Betty to pick up her spoon before they begin. Dorothy too starts, and they all But naturally, the guests give no indication of having noticed any error on Bob's part, since that in itself would be impolite. As the relish dish is passed, Bob takes a handful and puts them on his service plate, and back he goes to his soup in the same old way. Then Bob notices that the others have placed their relish differently, and changes them from one plate to the other, knowing there is a reason, but what is it? But having made the change, Bob is glad to see Betty has noticed that he corrected himself. All is well again with the party. No one's enjoyment is being interrupted with any problems for the moment. Betty now is running into some problems of her own, things that she hadn't thought of until now. That elbow on the table isn't one of her problems because she isn't even aware of it, but she is aware of the olive as a problem. Is there a correct way of eating an olive? Shouldn't you just pop it into your mouth and eat it? But then how do you take out the pit? With your fingers? And when you have the pit, where should you place it? Floyd seems to have confidence in his way, but also too many fingers. Betty thinks she might try Floyd's way. Betty hopes that she doesn't look as awkward as she feels. Now our hostess feels better about the olives, but right away she sees something else. Dorothy is breaking her celery before taking a bite. It has always been just celery. You ate it in whatever lengths you found it. Is it easier to handle in shorter lengths? And does it look like a smaller bite when you dip it in the salt and then bite off a portion? Bernie and Helen don't seem to be concerned with any problems. Bernie eats a radish and simply enjoys it, and he seems certain of himself. Helen is even tipping her soup plate for a last sup. Can that be correct? Certainly her manners aren't interfering with her enjoyment of the party. As host, Bob is expected to serve the meat course. At home, his father does the serving. It looked perfectly simple, and it is. But if you were in Bob's place, would you know positively what to do? Which serving implement should he use? Should he just go ahead as best he can? Dorothy is looking away so as not to notice. Bob still isn't sure of what to do, but he can't hesitate forever. That amount seems too much. A lady is not flattered by being offered a portion the size that might appeal to a hungry lumberjack. Betty is worried for Bob, but after all, he is trying. Everyone learns by experience, even when mistakes are made, and one isn't at all sure of anything that he is doing. Bob wonders if the portions he is serving are now too small. Should he give a large portion to the men and small ones to the ladies? Or should he serve about this amount and let the guests return their plates if they wish a second helping? Now Betty is about to serve the salad. Some new questions are arising. Can she use the implements for serving the salad correctly? And what size should the portions of salad be? Is she offering too little? Is she getting a proper assortment? As Betty passes the plate, should she say for whom the plate is intended? Bernie and Helen act as though everything were going smoothly with them. And so really it is. In spite of Betty's worries, there are no mishaps. Floyd and Dorothy are enjoying themselves. Bob, you notice, is not starting first this time. He waits with the others for Betty to start. Here is the kind of fun that they all thought of when the party was planned, of having a good meal together and plainly enjoying one another's company. The errors that have been made haven't taken the fun out of the party, and we must remember to give them credit for all the things that have been done correctly. For every mistake made, a dozen things have been done correctly. Bob is feeling more confident of himself. He seems to remember that it is correct to use his knife for cutting lettuce or tomato if they are served in pieces that are too big for a proper bite. What do you think? Is he wrong or is he right? But the person with confidence isn't necessarily the person who is correct. Up until this minute, Betty has been confident that a person should butter his vegetables with his knife. But now that Betty sees Floyd buttering his with his fork, she isn't certain. She wishes she did know definitely. It seems safer to follow Floyd's example. If he is correct, then she will be too. Bob is swinging from one extreme to another. One minute he is uneasy, the next overconfident. Now he is forgetting even his company manners and is acting as he usually does in telling one of his favorite stories. Dorothea and Floyd give him their attention when he's looking at them, but at the same time they manage to continue eating while their food is warm. Bob isn't letting the story interfere with his eating either. So let's try counting the number of obvious blunders. The waving of his knife and fork about. Talking with food in his mouth. Monopolizing the conversation. But it is an exciting story. It's about a trip up in the mountains, and then uh-oh. This isn't the kind of an ending to the story that Bob had in mind, but it is quicker and maybe better. At least it stopped Bob from making any more mistakes. Betty, too, has discovered that she had forgotten a couple of items of behavior. She is thinking that perhaps she and Bob both need to be embarrassed a bit to make them admit that their manners aren't as good as they should be. Bob may be thinking the same thing, because he certainly looks as if he has decided to make a lot of changes. The others, of course, say nothing. Betty decides that the first thing for her to do is to regain her poise. Just act as though no errors had been made. But she will be more observing of her own manners and those of others, too. Betty feels safe in her way of eating a roll and jelly. Is there anything in what Bernie and Helen are doing that would get your attention right away? Was there anything in the way he helped himself to more jelly? How about the way he holds his knife and fork? Or the way he cuts his meat? And takes it to his mouth with his left hand. When you are eating meat, do you take the meat to your mouth with the fork in your right hand or your left? Is there a question of correctness here? Helen is also using her left hand. Betty holds the fork in her left hand while cutting the meat, and then passes the fork to her right hand for placing it in her mouth. This is zigzag eating. She has noticed that the British and continental people usually use their left hands. But now that she is beginning to take her manners seriously, she wonders if there is a matter of correctness involved or whether both ways are equally correct. One way American, the other European. Betty wishes she were as certain of that point as she is of how her knife should be placed. Bob has never heard of zigzag or continental ways of eating meat, but he is on the watch out for such things now. And as soon as he notices what Betty is doing, he is ready to follow her example, whether she is right or wrong. He uses his left hand all right, even if he does take an oversized bite. Bob congratulates himself on trying a new way. He and Betty have a lot to learn. At least there are no further mishaps as the meat course is finished and the table cleared for dessert. Bob is happy now and is proud of himself. Formal parties like this are really enjoyable when one isn't afraid of doing the wrong thing. Bob has reached the point where he feels that since his intentions are good and he is watching himself, that all is well. If you just try to figure out what is the reason for each rule of etiquette, you find that the rules are sensible. After all, correct manners are simply the way one person shows his consideration for another. In other words, proper manners are your way of showing common politeness. As far as Bob is concerned, this is the best birthday he has ever had. And to top it off, a big birthday cake that Betty had made for him. He really appreciates this. For the cake is a symbol, like the whole dinner, of friendship. A very delicious symbol of the regard that Betty and her friends hold for Bob, particularly Betty. The lighting of the birthday cake with candles is an old custom, and so is the blowing out of the candles. But do you suppose the placing of the candles at the side is a modern touch of avoiding possible germs being blown on the cake? Serving the meat course upset Bob. Apparently serving the cake has its difficulties too. Our hostess isn't certain that she should be helping Bob. She worried about leaving the table to bring in the cake in the first place. Betty wondered if the serving should be left to the housekeeper. What would you say? There is no denying that Bob needs help. He is having trouble with the serving implements again. Do you think he might be able to figure out from the shape and the size of the blades which to use? Cutting and serving your own birthday cake would seem to be a pleasure, but could you actually do this any more gracefully than Bob is? Betty's help may not be as great as she thinks. What of her reaching in front of Bob, and about her placing the dessert forks? Are these correct? Bob accompanies Betty to her place, assisting her with her chair before resuming his serving. He is at least trying to change his habits. And you notice, he forgot his napkin and sat on it. He is serving smoothly now and is not distracting his friends with his difficulties. They are free again to chat as they wish. And once again, the party is fun. Bob and Betty met more problems than they expected. As we are seeing, people like Betty and Bob, who want to entertain their friends and have good times together, forget that poor manners can really interfere with the fun of the party. There is no fun in being worried, unsure, or ill at ease. It is much simpler in the long run to face your problems, find out what the correct answer is, and then when you act in a way that you know for certain is correct, your mind is perfectly free. Of course, all this isn't accomplished just by wishing. There are still habits that have first to be detected and then broken. This is hard. Then new habits have to be formed. But a little study of etiquette will help greatly, and lessons are all practical. Once you have formed correct habits in your manners, you will find that they give you a sense of confidence. That is a reward in itself. Our party is ending, but let's hope that for you it is, in another sense, just a beginning. As you think of Betty and Bob and their problems, compare your own manners. Don't forget that it is by their manners that polite people the world around show their consideration for one another. A dinner party is just one way of enjoying company of your friends. A good meal, good company, real enjoyment, that's what a dinner party is for.
Hello, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that segment as much as I did. I'm going to keep table on the chalkboard here because it really plays into our next lesson. We know about table etiquette, but now just how do you set that table? Where do the forks go? Where do the spoons go? How about the glass or your napkin? That is all about our next lesson here, setting the table.
All social function etiquette. The serving of tea to friends is an old and very enjoyable custom, and so it has its traditions. These rules are not arbitrary, but have grown out of the wish of each woman to please her friends. June's suggestion of using a white linen cloth for the tea table is considered incorrect. A lace cloth or an embroidered cloth or one of Italian cutwork is preferable in that it is better suited to the type of occasion. A fine cloth, something that your friends can enjoy. You show your politeness by offering your guests every consideration. The cloth is spread with care so that it is smooth and hangs evenly at the sides. The centerpiece of flowers is low, and the colors harmonize with the rest of the arrangements. The same care and thoughtfulness are given to arranging the table as have been given to the issuing of invitations, to the choice of dress, and the preparation of the food. June isn't sure what type of candelabra should be used, but she is reminded that candles should not be placed on the table at all unless they are to be lighted and used as the principal light. Since this is her intention, candelabra are chosen which are not too high and which will hold enough candles to furnish sufficient light. The candelabra are then placed where they will light the table and yet not interfere with the serving. The placement is exact and symmetrical, giving a feeling of balance in the design of the arrangements. Exactness in details helps tremendously in giving the final impression of perfection. Of course, tea is not the only drink that may be served at a tea. Coffee may be offered or punch, and the service need not be of silver. Chinaware may be used. In the placing of the tea sets, the first requirement is the very practical one of putting things where they may be reached and used with ease. The rules of etiquette are, in this sense, always practical and logical. The reason behind each rule is not hard to find. You are treating others as you would want them to treat you. The pourer will have the tea urn conveniently at her right, the cream and sugar at her left. The convenience of the guest who will pour the tea is kept in mind in the placing of the cups, too. June isn't just sure where the cups should go, but by putting herself in the pourer's place and starting to pour, she easily finds the most logical location for the cups, at the right. The rules of etiquette are always based on practicality and consideration for others. June should not put her hand into a cup from which someone else will drink. She shouldn't stack the cups so they might topple. At the most, cups should be stacked only too high, or, better yet, not stacked at all. These are simple matters, but they avoid accidents and embarrassment. The plates are placed where a guest may readily pick one up, receive a cup of hot tea upon it, and still not have to move all around to reach the food that is offered. At the other end of the table, the plates and cups are arranged in the same way. Perhaps tea will be served at one end and coffee at the other. However, the table arrangements are the same so that the two ends balance. And in this way, the symmetry of the design is maintained. Each part of the arrangement will add its share to the total effect in making the completed table attractive. The next problem June is concerned with is the placing of the spoons and napkins. She wonders if there are rules as to where they should be placed and if they should be placed in any particular way, and of course the answer is yes. They should not be stacked or piled up, but be placed singly and staggered for ease in picking them up. The napkins that have been selected are small tea napkins which match the tablecloth, and their arrangement this way adds to the attractive appearance of the whole table. As the arrangements take shape, we see that we are being guided by two principles. One is the practical concern of serving food and drink. The other is a matter of showing consideration for our guests. On one hand, we want our guests to enjoy their sandwiches and tea without letting the serving interfere with their conversation and enjoyment of one another's company. On the other hand, we want the arrangements aesthetically pleasing as a tribute to our friends. The candles, straight and firmly fixed, will give an intimate light, a warm and friendly tone. The flowers will add their color and fragrance. The food also will be dainty, bite-sized sandwiches and cakes that are pleasing to the eye as well as to the taste. The plates of food are well filled, but not overflowing. It is a simple matter to bring another plate when one of these is emptied, or to replenish one of the small dishes of nuts or candies. And now that our table arrangement is almost complete, we may begin to check ourselves to see that everything is in readiness and in proper order. As the guests arrive and see the table, will their first impression be one of orderliness, simplicity, and good taste? Will they then notice that the arrangement is also practical and efficient, nothing omitted, such as slices of lemon for those who prefer it to cream and sugar? May we now be assured that each guest can, with the greatest of convenience and without interrupting her conversation with friends, step to the table, take up a napkin, plate, and spoon, accept a cup of tea from the pourer, chat as she moves along the table, helping herself to lemon, to the nuts or candies, then to the sandwiches or cakes. And can't we be sure that she will enjoy the flowers and the candles, appreciate a fine cloth and nice napkins? Yet through correctness in such things as proper table arrangements, that we show our courtesy, good taste, and friendliness.
Hello and welcome back. Now that you learned how to place the table right, we have to dive into our next lesson on how to dine. We've got the table out of the way, and now it is time to just use our brains. Let's say you order some soup, and the waiter or waitress brings it out, and you say, "Oh, my soup's hot." Or let's say for dessert, you order some ice cream, and you complain, "Oh, my ice cream is cold." Use common sense. Common sense.
I hope you got something good to eat tonight. Hi, Mom. The coach really gave us a workout. Oh, boy, ham! I'm so hungry I could eat a neutral to see what he gave us to do.
Chuck,
Huh?
could you serve yourself in a less athletic manner?
Oh. Is this better?
Jack, at least you could manage to be on time. After your mother goes to all the trouble to prepare a fine meal, it's only common courtesy, Chuck.
I know, but I couldn't help it. I was late home from school.
Never mind. He did wash up and brush his hair. By the way, Chuck, I saw Barbara's mother downtown. That's quite a supper party she's planning.
Is it this Friday?
I'm not going.
Why not?
Do I have to have a reason?
But all your friends will be there.
Carl, I'm not.
Chuck, don't talk with your mouth full.
Good night, Chuck.
Good night. Have a good time.
Thank you, Chuck.
Night,
Good night.
Dad. Oh, who wants to go to a supper party?
You do, Chuck.
Huh? Who are you?
We're looking into the future, Chuck. I am the young man you are going to be in a few short years.
Well, if you say so.
And take it from me, when we're my age, we won't be turning down invitations.
Maybe not.
Tell me, why aren't you going?
I don't know.
I do. You're worried about not doing the right thing. Your table manners.
Now you're talking like Mom and Dad.
Look, you may not care much about table manners now, but when you grow up to be me, then you'll care.
But why? Why does it matter?
For several reasons. Look, maybe I can show you. Let's imagine the family at dinner with nobody minding his manners. Not very pretty, is it? Each person busy feeding his face, showing no consideration for the others. People become irritated, angry. No one can enjoy a meal like this. No. Mealtime is a time for pleasure and relaxation. It's the best opportunity the family has to talk together, exchange bits of news, make plans. When everybody eats properly, the meal goes better, and everybody has more fun. What's more, when we relax and enjoy ourselves, we digest our food better. And ask your doctor if that isn't important to your health. But there's more.
What's that?
How long now before you'll be going out to make your own way in the world?
Not very long, I guess.
And whatever you do, wherever you go, you'll want to put your best foot forward. Here, let's try another trick. Let's change that to a table in a restaurant. You're taking a girl out to dinner. To make a good impression, you must know what to do. Who seats the girl? When you sit? How to order your meal? Of course, the girl wants to know these things too, in order to show herself at her best. Then you must know how to eat your meal. And the only way to have good table manners when you want them is to practice them regularly at home. Get in a habit of eating properly, so it just comes naturally. Or take another case. Say you're having lunch with your boss. Say he's thinking about somebody to fill a good position that's opening up. Well, put yourself in the boss's place. Would you give the job to a fellow like this? Or to a fellow who thinks that table manners are silly? You see what I mean about putting your best foot forward? Table manners are important because people judge many things about you just by the way you eat.
All right, maybe so, but it's all so complicated.
Is it? Look, there's nobody here. Let's try it out.
What do you mean?
Come on. Besides, that supper party sounds good. If we know what to do, I think we'll want to go.
Well...
Look sharp now. There. There is a place setting properly arranged.
It looks all right, but what am I supposed to do? That's the question.
Well, what would you do if you sat down to dinner and found 3 forks, like this?
I'd probably end up with one left over and wonder what I did wrong.
Not if you remember one simple rule. Always use silverware from the outside in. So, starting from the outside, use this for your salad, this for your main course, and this...
Why, that one must be for the dessert.
You see? It's easy.
But there's something funny here. Doesn't the butter knife belong here?
Well, the book says either place. And speaking of the book, it wouldn't hurt you to use one sometime and check up on any points that you're not sure of.
Sure, we have some books in school, but I'll have to be careful who sees me reading it.
Don't worry, you can manage that. And now to use these things. Let's have some food. Say, it's too bad you've just eaten.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Things will be easier if you'll remember that in eating, there are 3 kinds of food. Finger foods, fork foods, and spoon foods. Now, clean dry foods, bread is one of them, are finger foods. But when you have something that's messy or sticky, you better use a fork.
Yeah, like a cream puff?
That's the idea. Now, fork foods include meats, potatoes, vegetables, salads, and many others. There's a right way to hold a fork, and this is it. Don't put onto your fork any more than 1 mouthful of food. Oh yes, after you've placed food on your fork, if you decide to talk, lay it down until you're ready to eat. It looks better. And this is the way to park a fork, after you've used it.
Not propped up on the edge of the plate, huh?
That's the idea. Here, now you try it.
Okay.
Now with some fork foods, we need a knife. Let's see how you use it.
The folks say I do it wrong.
Hey, that's not only the wrong way, it's the hard way. Here, try this. Put the ends of both the handles in the palms of your hands, like that. Hold the meat with your fork and cut the meat. Don't tear it apart.
Say, this is better.
You see? Good table manners are just common sense.
Is that right?
Yes, that's the way most people in America handle their knife and fork. We don't have to worry with the European method. But now, after you've finished eating,
I have.
you place your knife and fork this way to show that you have finished.
But what about spoonfuls?
Oh, yes. All right. How do you manage soup?
Hi, you don't fool me on this one. You never tip the bowl, and you dip the soup away from you. Not too much in the spoon, and you eat from the side of the spoon.
Precisely. And now, would you care for some turnips?
Oh, the turnips. You know I can't bear... no thank you.
That's the idea, Chuck. Courtesy, consideration for others, common sense. That's what table manners are.
You mean that's all there is to table manners, just what we've talked about?
Oh, no. But you already know a great deal. And you can learn still more by watching Mother and Dad and other people who have good manners. But the main thing is...
The main thing is to practice at home so that table manners will come naturally and I won't have to think about them when I'm out.
You can't miss. Oh, let's stew the dishes.
Mother should see that.
Well, Chuck, are we going to that party?
Sure we are. We are?
That's right, Chuck. We are going to the party. You can't see me any longer, but remember, I'm the fellow you're going to be. So I'm interested in seeing that you always make a good impression. This really isn't hard, is it? You know what to do. That's right. Ladies first into the dining room. And now what?
Here I am.
Right again. Find your place and remain standing.
Were you in science when the white mice got loose?
Oh, I remember that.
You see, Chuck, it's easy to do the right thing if you remember courtesy, consideration of others, and common sense.
You didn't have to get up on the table.
Goodness, they were about this small, but
Oh, it was good.
And also remember, you're here not to see how much or how fast you can eat, but to have a good time.
Yeah.
Well, our boy is doing all right. Don't you think so? Don't you think you can do the same?
Hello, welcome back. Now that you've learned how to use common sense while at the dining table, you have to learn how to be respectful at the table. Or in other words, how to be polite. Polite.
This is a story of a holiday and home. Helping make ready a celebration is part of the fun. Especially for one of the nicest days of the year, Thanksgiving. There is happiness in the air. And the smell of turkey. That does look good. Thanksgiving is a day for the best of everything. friends invited to dinner. We remember the Pilgrims had only rough tables on which to serve the first Thanksgiving feast, yet it was shared with friendly Indians. It is good to share a holiday with friends. And it is good to have friends like to come to our home. Good manners make people happy, and good table manners make eating together a happy time. We are thankful for our home and our happy meal. We are glad we have good table manners and know what to do with a napkin. And how to use a spoon in eating soup easily without noise. It just wouldn't be Thanksgiving without turkey. We know Mother knows how to cook it. And Father knows how to carve it. It is fine to know how to sit up and watch it being carved. You would know this is a holiday plate. At the first Thanksgiving dinner, the Indians didn't eat turkey with a fork. But it is easy to learn to use one the right way, to take small mouthfuls. And how to butter and eat bread in small bites, so we never have to talk with food in our mouths. It is good to have learned to chew with lips closed and know when to take a drink. Good table manners keep our meals happy meals, and those who eat with us happy. Learning to use a knife the right way takes practice, yet each time we do, it becomes easier. What to do with a knife and fork, even when finished using them, is part of eating well. Holidays are days to be glad, and all good manners are ways to make people glad. We like to offer help, or to help when asked. Nice to talk with others and to know when to wait and listen. We are glad to eat neatly without spots. Holidays are fun. Part of a celebration. It is fine to have learned so much and to have so much in our home to make holiday celebrations happy. Could you wish for more?
Well, now that you've learned how to be polite, as well as the other lessons that you've learned in this episode, I think you should be ready to go out there and dine and have a very tasty meal. You've got all the tools that you'll ever need. I thank you for tuning in to this latest edition of How to Live. I'm your host, your teacher, professor, and PhD, Joe Gigliotti. I thank you for tuning in. Keep it simple. We'll see you next time.